everybody to grow. So what I did last year is I did cherry tomatoes that are smaller tomatoes on the top, and you can plant probably 4 plants on top, and then they'll grow right up to 6, and you can tie them to them. And then along the side, I did lettuces and chards and leafy greens. And then on the bottom, you can try some vine plants. They tend to be really heavy eaters, like cucumbers and zucchini and stuff like that. So those can be really hard to grow just because they take up a lot of nutrients. And at some point, maybe a couple months in, Mary, I think you're done. Am I? Thanks, Mary. Yeah. So the viney plants are hard to grow, but you could try a couple on the bottom. So, okay, so here's our back garden. It's totally full, completely packed in. I would just make sure, the sticks are in place and everything is packed against the sides so that it looks somewhat straight. Okay, so these you can cut if you don't think you'll have things, like if you have beans or something, those would be good, but you don't have to keep those that high. So then in terms of putting the plants in, I just use a little knife. And what you do is spread them out maybe 6 inches or so apart from one another, all the different holes. What I do is sort of carrot, so if you just do like a little upward facing arrow, so if you just sort of go right in here, the hole you should make is smaller than you think it should be. So it's really like just this little bit. And then you pull it down, and if you pull it out a little and sort of make a hole in there, you would plant. So I don't have any seedlings that are ready to transplant. These are some of my seedlings. They're bees. But what you would do is you would take one of them, and you don't want to transplant them until the root system is really holding all of the soil in there. That probably means that they're strong enough to transplant. So you would take the whole bit of soil out and just sort of shove it in. And if you pack it in here, what you want to do is sort of close this up so just the seedling is coming out. And what that will do is it'll help to start to train the plant to grow up, and you'll find that they'll sort of start to stick out, but then once they're given a little chance to grow, they'll grow straight up. And if you push this over, then it'll hold in the moisture as well. So that can be really helpful. So now if you look on top of this, you have the water column on top. So you can actually see the gravel right here. So you can pour the water directly into the water column that now is going all the way down to the bottom. So you just take your knife and sort of spread them out. Depending on what you're growing, if you're doing lettuce, then this is probably fine. Sort of right here and here, just go throughout the stack. And that is that.
How much water do you use?
How much?
Water?
Water?
Yeah.
I pour it in until I hear it leaking out at the bottom. So at the beginning, that would probably be all of it, because the roots aren't growing into the gravel yet. And then you definitely want to water the top plants as well. So if you water around here on the top, when I first plant, I'll take like a spray bottle and sort of spray the whole thing so the burlap is somewhat moist, because the little seedlings aren't going to be growing into the gravel yet. But if they're big enough and you push them in, they're only about that far away from the gravel, which also means you can't really plant fruit plants. Carrots and beets are sort of hard because they'll hit the gravel, and that'll be that. So yeah, so this is it, yeah.
So at the end, is it difficult to separate the gravel from the soil?
It is a bit of a pain. You sort of have to do it methodically. If you sort of roll it down the same way we built it, so if you sort of roll it down and try to take out some of the soil, like if you pull out all the plants, it'll take a lot of the soil with it. And then if you try to, the gravel is going to have all of the roots in it, so if you can sort of try to pick it up like that, if you get like a cardboard box cover or something and you poke holes in it, you can just dump everything in and sort of sift it so the gravel comes out, or the soil comes out and the gravel stays. And that's sort of the best way to do it, I would say. And then the soil can be composted and you can save the gravel for next year. So, yeah, does anybody have any other? Yeah.
So timing-wise, for novice gardeners,
Yeah.
When did you start and how long did you move up?
So I have planted some of my seedlings already. Lettuce and stuff like that is super easy to grow. So you don't need to do that for another couple weeks. You could start it now, so you can transplant it in a few weeks. I would suggest getting seedlings going now. For one stack garden, I would plant probably 60 seeds, keeping in mind that some of those will not sprout, and you'll be able to choose the really strong ones. The important thing to keep in mind with this is that it sucks out a lot of nutrients from the soil quickly. So you have to keep a close eye on it. If the leaves start turning yellow, if there's, if it seems like they're not getting enough water, if there's too much root competition, then you need to see if your plants are either too closely planted too closely together. And you should also, if you Google nutrient deficiencies, you can tell pretty quickly if the leaves are burnt on the outside, you may have a potassium deficiency. And so you can get fertilizers for that. But this, I use some organic fertilizers and mix them in the water and put them right in the water column once every 2 or 3 weeks. And that'll help just keep the nutrient levels up. And I definitely use organic. It sticks in the soil longer and keeps the soil healthier. So did I answer your question right now? Oh, timing. So I would plant the seedlings now, if you can get them, or within the next couple of weeks. I get my seeds, I get all heirloom seeds, so I can save seeds for next year. A lot of the seeds that are sold at Home Depot and things like that are hybrids, so they'll produce infertile seeds, and you will be able to save them for the next year. So I get them, I think it's called rareseeds.com, that I get mine from, but you can find them, if you Google it, you can probably find them online. So yeah, I would plant them, and then in terms of building the stack garden, probably the beginning of June. It depends on what the weather does. Not doing anything special lately. But I would probably say the beginning of June, middle of May if you're feeling adventurous. But it depends on when the plants are ready for transplant, which is not until the roots are holding on to all of the soil in your little seed packet. And in terms of growing the seedlings, I have this 6-pack thing left over from last year. But you can use, I've used like little yogurt containers, cottage cheese, like whatever sort of container you have. I was just using, if you're only planting 60 seeds, you can egg cartons are good too. And in terms of watering them, if you just use a spray bottle to not totally drown the seeds, that's good. But egg cartons can be really nice to use to start with seeds.
What if I didn't want to plant seedlings and I just want to go like buy? Can I buy them?
You can. So Allendale, you can buy some probably in Brookline. At any sort of greenhouse you can. If you look on Craigslist, there are a lot of gardeners that get really excited and plant like 1,000 too many seeds, and they give them away. So you can look for that as well. That's a really easy way of doing it. But yeah, you don't have to. I have them growing sort of in my back room, which can be messy, and if you have pets, they'll probably eat them. So that can be a pain, but yeah, buying them is definitely an option as well, yeah.
What predators do you have to worry about in the city?
Dogs, definitely, they'll get at stuff. One of the foster dogs that I had last summer ate all of my little baby cucumbers, which was a sad, sad day for me, but very happy for her. So that's something I would keep an eye on, dogs will eat it. In terms of other stuff, I've never had any like raccoon or rats or anything like that on it. My biggest issue last year was aphids, and those were growing on my broccoli plants, and I removed them manually, which some people might find a little gross, but better than pesticides. And the other thing I would suggest is planting a couple of marigolds or nasturtium in the sack. What's that? Yeah, so it'll attract them away from the vegetable plant. And the marigold is really, it has a really strong scent to it, and that'll just deter insects. And that really seemed to work for the aphids last year. But they can get out of control, and I manually kill them off, so, yeah.
Have you had any luck with sort of the work or the pesticide like we have?
I've never tried one. Something I used in Tanzania was, because we were also planting traditional gardens. This, you can keep an eye on it closely enough where if you see something, you can manually remove it. But if you're not into that, then we would just take a bucket and put in chili peppers and crushed up chili peppers and marigold leaves, and just sort of make it into a little potion and put it in a spray bottle and spray it all over the plant. And that does a really good job of deterring a lot of the pests that will be on there. The other thing that I found that I was really surprised to see there in my tomato plants were hornworms, which I was surprised to see in the city, but I'm also across from a community garden that's haunting me, but not letting me in. And so it took me a while to figure it out because there are these huge worms, and you would think that you could see them, but they blend in perfectly, and they eat all of your leaves and move all over your porch. And so those were the largest pests that I have, but you can manually remove them. But if you have more, then